Episode 2 of Parenthood is called Oceans, and it's about how animals in the ocean look after their young. The episode opens up with bottlenose dolphins. We see a bottlenose dolphin calf that's just been born. We don't get a huge amount of information other than it's just quite cute to look at. So again, like last episode, pretty low key, and not a bad way to open the episode. And then we move to the coral reefs. Here we see the bang-eye cardinal fish. It's basically a fish that carries its young in its mouth. It's interesting, I've heard of that stuff before, I haven't heard of this specific species, but I do know that behaviour exists. It's not something you see very often, and it's quite cool. It's interesting watching it dodge predators, and its young stay in its mouth. It's interesting it has to starve itself to basically look after its young. It kind of shows that paternal sacrifice that a lot of animals have, especially fish. And yeah, it was a good sequence. Then we go back to the dolphins. This was more in depth. We basically see dolphins playing a game whereby they take a bit of coral, balance it in their nose, and then drop it and catch it again. See this one young dolphin try to do this. And it's fun, it's a nice little fun sequence. It kind of reminds you that dolphins are just really cool. They're just really cool to look at. I really like bottlenose dolphins in these programmes. And again, I had seen this kind of behaviour before, and I'd seen the bit after it, whereby they're rubbing themselves against sponges for medicinal purposes. But it's still nice to see. Again, really good footage, and just really cool. I really like that. Then we go to Australia, we see the weedy sea dragon. This is nothing really new. We've seen this before, whereby the male has all the young on its tail, and it looks after them. We do see how it makes it very conspicuous to predators, because the eggs stand out a lot. But when they get covered by algae, it's all good. And the eggs hatch, and they drift off, and it's quite nice. That kind of leads us into the skeleton shrimp. To be perfectly honest with you, now that the episode's finished, I'm struggling to actually remember what the skeleton shrimp were actually doing. It's not very professional, but hey-oh, very low budget YouTube channel. Then we go to Shetland and we see otters. So this was quite nice. I thought this was pretty cool because it was in Scotland and I've been to Shetland before. We see this one mother with 3 cubs, which is pretty rare. It's very rare to have 3 cubs. And she has to constantly be out looking for food to feed them. The smallest cub, he's not really getting much food, so he follows his mum out in the water, gets lost and tries to find her again. To be honest with you, when I was watching this sequence, I was kind of like, this is very obviously meant to pull at my heartstrings. But because I knew for a fact he'd find his mum again, don't want to say I didn't care, but I was definitely like, okay, this is going to go on for a bit, then it's going to find its mum again, and that's fine. I kind of feel like if it didn't, then that maybe would have been better, but then also wouldn't have had as nice an ending. I think the fact that these programmes are shown so early in the night, you can't really go to any real dark places. And in this episode, and the last one to an extent, I did kind of feel that a little bit, and I'll talk about that later in the video, but I kind of felt like maybe we could have gone another angle. But no, it's still a good sequence. The otter footage is great. And it was nice to go to Shetland. I like that. Then we go to the west coast of America. And here we see Garibaldi fish. It's the same stuff we got in Blue Planet 2, whereby they've got their little garden area that they have to maintain. They're fighting off sea urchins. Other fish come in to help them out. But we see outside of the reserve that this is filmed in, all the sea urchins are basically out there running rampant. They're taking out the kelp. And at this point, I was kind of like, yeah, but we've seen this before in so many other series. I kind of feel like, in a way, this episode was kind of tailored to people that don't watch these kind of programmes. Because we've seen the urchin thing so often, and it is kind of the same thing we've seen before, it didn't really blow me away. It didn't have the same, impact I should have had, and they kind of spent a lot of time talking about it. The same with the plastic stuff. I was kind of like, yeah, this is Blue Planet 2. I kind of feel like we're, back in 2017 here, we know this stuff. But it didn't linger on the plastic too long. You kind of used that to highlight how it's been exploited by octopus. And we see the pale octopus, we see a female looking for a nest, and we see that because there's so much plastic on the ground, there's a lot of opportunities. We see 2 females fighting over a toilet. That's kind of amusing. And she finds a male in this pipe and mates with him. That's nice, she's got her eggs. Then it kind of goes to stuff we've seen before, like with the giant Pacific octopus, whereby she basically sacrifices herself for her young. What was quite cool was watching her shoot her babies with her siphon. That was quite fun. I didn't really know about that. But the end of that sequence is a little bit depressing because obviously she dies, and it would normally be quite sad, but they're like, is this pipe a fitting grave for this kind of sacrifice? Probably not. So in a way, while I wasn't like massive on the plastic thing, I was kind of like, fair enough. It had some resonance by the end. I think that was alright. And then we see orcas. So the orca sequence was the bit I was looking forward to most going in. Obviously, it was the picture on BBC iPlayer, so I was like, cool, that's going to be reliable. And here we see how orcas teach their young to hunt. It's actually really interesting because these are orcas that hunt whales. So we see that one orca basically rolls onto its back and the other orcas simulate drowning it. And while it is quite dark, obviously, we've seen this behaviour before, and it's always a, pretty depressing sequence where the orcas are almost always the villains. It was interesting to see how that behaviour kind of manifests itself. So that was quite cool, and it's not something you see that often. I've seen some orca teaching sequences recently in the Americas and in our oceans. But this was definitely interesting. It was very different. And then we see them hunting a blue whale, which I thought was pretty amazing because I had never really thought that orcas could take a blue whale. Granted, this isn't an adult, but it's not a calf either. And it was really cool for what we saw. This sequence was actually very brief. You get a couple shots of the orcas try to drown the blue whale. You see one kind of burst of blood, and then we move on. And I kind of feel like that wasn't really what I was hoping for this. I feel like when you see orcas hunting blue whales, you want this really big, epic hunt because that is what it is. I mean, it is something you don't really expect to see very often. It's not something I think that they discovered till very recently, and I kind of felt a bit underwhelmed by that, to be honest with you. It was very much focused on the parental side of things, like teaching their young, which I get. It's called Parenthood, but I kind of feel like in retrospect, it was a bit weird to have the blue whale thing in there at all. I guess it highlighted how they used what they learned to hunt. But I think the example of a blue whale was kind of a lot more epic than this sequence really should have had. And considering it's the first time we've ever seen orcas hunting blue whales on the big screen, it was a bit of a letdown, if I'm honest. So that was all right. Then we go to South Africa. We see this big trawler, and all these birds are at it. I kind of looked like it was going to be like a more of an environmental thing, and it kind of is, but it doesn't really commit to it. We see loads of birds that are getting the fish, but these aren't really very nutritious fish. And we see this one gannet come back to feed its chick, but it's not really enough. This food isn't really enough to sustain a chick, so they've got to go out and get even more. And it was good, actually, to be fair. The gannets were pretty cool. I like gannets. Gannets are probably up there as one of my favourite birds. They're just pretty cool. It's nice seeing them. Going to a gannet colony is pretty amazing. And this was really good. It was a good extended sequence. It's probably the longest sequence in the episode, and it probably is the best, to be honest. We spend a lot of time with the gannets going out foraging, and then when the chicks are old enough to fend for themselves, they've got to get out to sea, but they've got to run the gauntlet against these fur seals. So this was interesting. I have seen this before in Nature's Great Events, but that came out in 2009, and I haven't seen it since. But it was pretty good. Watching the seals take on the gannets was quite interesting. That one gannet that gets away, you kind of knew it would. That's the thing. You knew it was going to get away. But to be fair, it was the last part of the episode. I kind of knew that. It's obviously the climax. So I kind of do feel like, the gannet getting away was perfectly fine. Was it the same gannet throughout the whole sequence? Probably not. Was it the same gannet pair throughout the whole sequence? Probably not. But it was a good narrative, and I actually did enjoy the gannet sequence at the end. The gannet getting away for the seals was good. And yeah, it was a good way of ending the episode, if nothing else. And then we get the diaries. This is all about the people filming the gannets. Good. It was the best part of the episode. And it's interesting. It's basically about the conservation of it, which I actually quite liked. And we see that when the gannets get attacked by the seals, the scientists basically take it back to this rehabilitation centre. And that's nice. It's a good end of the episode, watching the gannet that we'd seen getting attacked, getting released, and going out to sea. It was nice. It was a nice way of ending the episode. So yeah, this episode is good, I would say. I don't think it's as good as the last one, to be honest. I was looking forward to this one a lot more than the other episodes, to be honest. And it was a little bit underwhelming. The highlight for me was absolutely the gannets. I don't think anything else came close to it, to be honest. The orcas were cool, to be fair. As much as I've said they were underwhelming, the hunt was, but the actual behaviour was pretty cool. So I can say that was also really good. And yeah, to be fair, other things were good. Like, the otters I liked seeing. I liked the dolphins. It was good stuff in here. It's just that it maybe wasn't as good as I hoped it would be, but it was still good. Yeah, let me know in the comments below what your highlights were. Did you agree with me? Did you like this episode more than I did? Let me know. I'll be doing the next one next week, whatever it is. Grasslands, I think. So look forward to that. And yeah, as ever, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, or don't if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine. And I'll see you next time. And goodbye.